BDSM has several subset areas of play and exploration, and these include fetishes, kinks, and taboos. So what does taboo mean? A taboo is a subject, word, or action that is avoided for religious or social reasons. Examples of taboo kinks are voyeurism, having the desire to watch other people undress or have sex without their knowledge or consent. Age and incest play, daddy or mummy, little girl or boy. Sexual relations between two people classed as being too closely related to marry each other. Exhibitionism, having sex while others watch and or exposing one's genitals without the consent of onlookers. Racial humiliation/play, degradation, sometimes at its most brutal levels, where the focus on race is the basis for play. Over the last few years, there have been more conversations about racial humiliation and its appropriateness in the current climate. Race play and humiliation, along with other taboo kinks, will always have their skeptics, but this is why YKINMKATO exists. Your kink is not my kink, and that's okay. People regularly question why it's a fetish and will often reprimand the women who cater to it. Women from the UK, USA, and Asia get together to discuss why they use it and enjoy it.
Hi, my name's Miss Fox and I'm from London in the UK. I identify as a femdom. I am heterosexual / cisgendered female and I identify as black. Marguerite, over to you.
Thank you, Miss Fox, appreciate that. So I am Madame Marguerite. I'm from New York, but I'm currently in Los Angeles, California, and I am a dominatrix and fetish specialist. Gender, I'm pretty gender neutral, but I identify more towards female than anything else. And my ethnicity is I'm Arab. I'm from Morocco and Iberia, and that's me.
Awesome. So Kim from Sheffield, UK. I identify as femdom. I am straight, hetero. Identify as female, and I am Indian.
I am Mistress Eva O. I am currently in Bali, Indonesia. When they let me out, I am often in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. I am a dominatrix, and I am pansexual, and I identify towards cisgender female, and people would consider me as mixed race if I went through the huge long list.
I am Mistress Mia Dark, located and based out of Oklahoma, United States. I'm a professional Domme and fetish model. I consider myself as pansexual. I am cis female, which means I was born with all my bits. And I consider myself as African American. The kind with money. Money to me is an ethnicity. When you're poor, you get put into a pile of poor people. When you're rich, you get put into a pile of rich people. So I don't really care what you look like. Do your checks clear? Is your money real? I would prefer to see more of my own people, more African-American, black people of color out there, but we tend to get squeezed into spaces where we rarely get a chance to see each other in places where we could play, unless it's designated to be a POC night or this is Black Beat 20 fill in the blank. I'm not really a big fan of that part of it. Like, we have to be put inside of our own little box, but I make it do what it do. What I usually end up dealing with is a lot of, like most African-American doms, Caucasian clients, because there's a million white boys across the United States that are like, be mean to me, because I'm white. All right.
I have no preference on what my clients should be. However, the majority of my clients have ended up being white. So I'd say it's about sort of 90% white submissive males I've had. Then it sort of goes down to Arabic. So from the United Arab Emirates, then it's Indian, whether they're from India or they're British Asian. Then it's Black, so Black American, Black British. And then lastly, it is East Asian, Chinese, Japanese sort of heritages.
Yeah, I don't really have a preference as to, the ethnicity or race of my clients or submissives, but the majority of my submissives are either Arab or some variation of white, Caucasian, and, most of my clients come from other countries. The majority of my clients come from, Arab nations, and that's it. Kim?
I usually, I don't have any preference, to be honest. I do get majority white submissives. Second would probably be Muslim. I get a lot of Muslims, Pakistanis predominantly, Arabs. And third would probably be Black. I haven't had any Chinese, Japanese submissives as of yet.
For me, the higher that I've upped my prices, the more I realize that white men in C-suites are able to afford it, which talks about something within itself. And then after that, because I guess I'm based in Asia, then it's mostly Chinese and mostly foreign educated Chinese, actually, for whatever reason. So kind of where I'm at right now, but personally I have zero preference. It's kind of what the marketing and the price range has kind of brought.
Well, depending on who I'm playing with, it really is a toss-up. Like, could you imagine me completely dressed out in Nazi regalia? Because I had a Jewish client who came with his own black and white pajamas before. And literally told me, make me feel like you're going to put me inside of the Kenworth oven in my kitchen. It literally turns into whatever floats your boat and how safe you feel around me when we're doing whatever that we're doing. I personally would like it to be like that with every client, but I don't always get that with every client. So when I do have race play involved, I want to give them the best race play experience they can have. Somebody who's coming to you with that kind of a request is already taking such a big leap. Like, it's a leap of faith. It's a leap of, will this turn into I lose my job or my house or my significant other at the end of this, what could be as quick as an hour or could be as long as a weekend. So it doesn't matter what your race is. If you come to me for it, I am going to give you the most that I have. I'm going to give you the best experience I can possibly provide because that's my own personal thing.
I do racial humiliation quite a lot. I do enjoy racially humiliating men of all races. Again, as I say, my client base has been predominantly white. So in that respect, I will racially humiliate a white man by saying how society has obviously chosen or that it's been fabricated to say that the white race is the superior race. But then a woman like me, if I can cause you to be submissive or I can make you weak, that clearly shows that actually you're not submissive, you're not superior. It's a woman such as myself who is. But I do really enjoy racially humiliating black men as well. And the way that I do that is I just show how they have not been able to live up to the reputation of black men. Black men are seen as being strong and powerful, but if I can, make them again be submissive, they're not living up to the standard that's expected of them. So those are the two main races that I prefer actually, and how I use to do race play or racial humiliation with my Arabic or Asian or Indian submissives. Again, I will say something like any sort of stereotypes I like to bring in. I do those things. However, I do try to avoid slurs, because slurs are really something that I like to engage in or say. I just prefer to make reference to sort of historical events or how cultures have treated particular races and bring that into my play, if that makes sense. So that's how I kind of, navigate the race issue or thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar for me. Whenever I do race play or racial humiliation, which, by the way, I only do it with select people. It's not something that I offer necessarily to everybody. We have to have our ontologies on point. We have to be sort of aligned politically, but I do the same sort of thing. If I'm dominating white men, I humiliate them about how arrogant they are and how ignorant they move through the world and how they lack, the knowledge of what anybody outside their ethnicity and race, is experiencing. And I talk about reparations and I talk about history, and I'll bring these things out. And, Arab men, the same, very much like Ms. Fox, I'll say, you're not living up to, the strength that you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be protecting women. And here I am. I'm the one creating the safe space for you when it's your job to protect, us women. And, I'll sort of, just in a way, kind of encourage them to be better than what they're currently doing by using that little bit of shame and humiliation. Like, what are you doing in the world? What are you doing with your position? What are you doing with your power? Are you using it? Or are you just letting, the white world dominate you and wash away your culture and who you are, so.
Generally, I play off of the historical dynamic. So with white men, it's generally, the whole India colonization thing. And that evolved for me, especially with one of my subs in particular, my chastity guy. We weren't into race play, but the Indian and the white thing kind of just ended up playing off of each other and became a fetish and an understanding. And also with the Pakistani guys as well, is generally the dynamic of the history and, present, the current climate, the current situation. And that works really well for us, because I think that's what they generally come for, is for pushing that dynamic of, superior and inferior, which was, role reversal, I guess. It's dynamic reverse. That's kind of how I usually approach it. And there's always something there. And when it comes to black men, which I enjoy dominating black men, because I think it doesn't happen very often. I don't generally get black submissives that come for the race play, and when it does, and I've got two in particular, they are for the racial slurs, they're for the whole shebang. So I'm comfortable with that and I'm fine with that, but again, it will always be from an education perspective, not just a case of barraging
for the sake of saying it.
It has to be that way, because I think it just gives it more of makes me feel superior when we were doing role reversal. There's a reason behind the race play, not just I don't like you because of your colour, or I don't, there's history there, and it's a way to play off. So That's how I generally use race play in mine.
For me, I actually haven't had the opportunity to delve into it in a session context. So I don't really do hour-long plays anymore. I do more day-long things. And nobody ever approached me from that angle before, that they wanted that. It's only something that I personally noticed myself after I had to hang out with these people for days at a time. And the majority are white cisgender males. And to talk to what Madame Marguerite was saying, their ignorance becomes very palpable when you have to spend a prolonged period of time with them. And it started to really annoy me. And so I recognized that I needed to address it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to stand being around them longer. I wanted the day-long play time, but I didn't want that attitude to be a part of the way that they moved through the world when they were around me. And so that's when I noticed that I had to attack that as well. So that's kind of how I integrate it into my lifestyle and how I operate with my subs. It's kind of a re-education so that they become palatable for my system.
Yeah. And that's what we do, right? We train the men that we dominate. That's what we do. It's, I
think that's
wiring them.
I think that's really important things what you ladies have just said there is literally just about our own limits, because a lot of people seem to think that we don't have any limits. Like we are not that much in control, that it's submissives that come to us, even though they're the ones with the fetishes and the kinks, that we're just like, fine, anything goes. So no, we don't do those things. We're not like that at all. We do have limits, and we do things that we are comfortable with at the end of the day, because we have enough knowledge and experience to make those decisions.
Yeah, you said it, knowledge and experience.
I have one boy who is my personal, who's a big whore. He is. He's just like, black women, please come spit on me now. Please kick me everywhere, bruise me up, make me feel worthless. And I love him for it. Because when all of that is said and done, he goes back to, the real world of how it actually is now versus what we did behind those closed doors in that moment. So with him and with a client of mine, it turns into, hey, how can we make the most, what from the outside looking in by anybody who is not indulging in this, as the worst scenario you could possibly have with another human being, and then make it gangbusters. So I will say their names because they are to the point that they don't care anymore. Jordan is about that life. Take me outside, do me dirty. I want to be publicly humiliated. For him, it's more cathartic. He tells me when I degrade him, that it makes him feel better as a person, because it's like he's losing baggage for things that were done in the past before he had any consent to say, like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say that. So it's like he is literally atoning for his people every time we're together. So his new thing is, every time you see me, make me feel like garbage, because people who have looked like me have made you and your people feel like garbage since we brought you over here on boats. And I told him, I love you so much for that. Thank you. Because whether people want to believe it or not, it's hard to come out and say, hey, this is what I want. Please don't look at me weird. I swear to God, I'm in my right mind, which is what the other boy says a lot. He does a lot of public humiliation and outdoor play, so he's constantly swatting away other white people who are like, oh my God, are you okay? She has you on a leash. Because, this grown ass man, I'm 6'3", he's 6'5". Of course, I drug him out here against his will with the power that the Lord has given me to do this to him, and he had no say-so in it. Yes, he's along for the ride. Stop trying to be saviors for someone who does not want to be saved, blatantly does not want to be saved. It's the same way, race play and extreme masochism, those two go in the same boat. Someone is constantly trying to tell you, you don't know what is good for you. Let me tell you what is good for you and better for you past your own fucking decisions. I just help people make their own decisions without feeling awkward about it. And they enjoy and pay for it well.
Again, it's like what you said earlier, Kim, it's about the power dynamic. It's whether I am humiliating a black or Asian. The race part doesn't actually mean that much sometimes. It's just the fact of my confidence and my persona, all of those things make it more so that I am the one in charge. The dynamic is so much more obvious by how I present myself. And if I happen to be a black woman, sometimes that obviously plays part of it also. But I obviously use it to my advantage as well, because as I said, like, majority of my clients have been white, and sometimes I will say, well, do you realize that you have submitted yourself to a black woman because of X, Y, and Z reason? And they're like, oh yeah. I also educate them in that way to try and show them the differences, obviously, between being a white man or a black man and a black woman, or Asian or whoever else. And then in turn, they do say that they feel more submissive through the education. They say that they enjoy how I've humiliated them to such an extent where they felt like they are just a shell of a human being, that when they go back to their everyday life, they are questioning how they are behaving, and that's what I really like. That's the kind of feedback I really enjoy from my submissives.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, with the white men that I dominate, it's very interesting to see their perspectives shift, right? Because when they need to see me as white, they see me as white. And when they need to see me as a strong Arab, North African woman, they're able to see that. So it's interesting to see how white men's perspectives change during play based on their comfort level. I could see them trying to relate to me, by placing me in, a race. And, that's why I don't really, identify much with race. I identify with ethnicity, but not so much with race, because race is what other people are going to put you in. That's what other people are going to categorize you. No matter what I say I am, somebody else is going to tell me that I'm something else. Yeah. And with Arab men, the play that we do is really empowering for them, because I'm putting them up on a pedestal in a country where they're constantly knocked down. And I cover my head a lot. Not all the time, not every single day, but I wear hijab, I wear a mitfashat, and I walk around with my head totally high. So when Arab men are walking through the world trying to avoid being recognized as Arab, and then they see me, a woman in this world, in this climate, walking around with my head held high, people shouting at me from cars, it makes them, because I'm telling them in the play, your job is to protect me. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job, okay? We're here to inherit the earth, and the women are the most precious on this earth. So if you are wasting your time being a coward, you need to rise to my level. And that it motivates them, and that empowers them, because they look at me and they see my strength, and they know that they have that strength in them. And, so it's really beautiful to see in my perspective.
I agree with you so much, Margaret. I think so much of the race play, and even the racial humiliation, is education in a different way. You can't help but teach them. I totally identify with that, because I think with my sub Andrew, who I'd never done race play with and had never been part of it, it came through the learning about the colonization of India by the British, and that's when you can start playing. The education came first, and then the play came afterwards, when we were comfortable with where we stood. And I think he had come into it as a very blinkered, how it is in the UK, kind of what we're seeing right now. What's going on is like, yeah, it was bad, but it weren't that bad, and we've had to break that down and say, hang the fuck, hang on. That's from your white male perspective. Like, I am an Indian woman in England, and it's different in my perspective. And when you break it down, what's actually happened is a bunch of white men, I don't remember many women colonizing India, but white men colonizing India and treading on the throats of Asian women. We're going to change that dynamic round, and let's put us in a level playing field in England, where we can both say how we feel. Then you see the inferiority show itself, because I'm a brown woman in England educating you about your history. Your own thing. That makes me superior default. That makes me superior default. So from there, where do you go? Yeah. You have to acknowledge the dynamic, and it grew from that really naturally. Neither of us planned it. Some guys come up and say, I want to be humiliated, racially derogatory, shouting at me, swearing at me, screaming at me. That's fine, we can do that, but that's not the only form of racial humiliation. There's others, and it can just transpire naturally. I think so. I totally agree with you.
I think how I've seen people react to the way that I've had to integrate race as a reality of my own survival to our relationships. I see people, the immediate reaction, because it's not something that they came to the table with, that they wanted it to be a part of it. It was just part of something that naturally came out of the fact that if we are going to have a relationship, we have to address this. It's shock, usually at the beginning. It's this deer in headlights. I was totally unaware that that's the framework for you as a woman, even, not even just the fact that I'm a white male, but that you are a woman, even regardless of the fact that you look Asian and I don't, and what the difference of the world around us looks like. It's pure shock. And then after a period of time, all of that settling in, it's an understanding that they've seen the world in such a skewed way, and their lives are very changed, and their decisions are very changed, and their businesses are very changed, and like everything improves for the betterment of the world around them eventually, if they are able to move through those stages. But that's how I've seen people react for me.
I think that's a good point that actually you just raised there. I mean, obviously all of us here, I think we would all identify as ethnic women, and being able to inform our submissives about how we do see the world, how things are very different from our perspective. I think it's a very important platform that we have, and very important work that we actually are doing through play, you know, and that's,
I agree,
forgotten. It's something not to be forgotten in all of this. Yeah.
In relationship also, it's the respect, I think, that is inculcated with the idea that you respect me, I respect you, we're in this together, and we can kind of transpose these ideas that will help us move through the world better. I think it's play, but it's also this understanding, this vulnerability that kind of opens us up to new possibility, which is very, very valuable.
Yeah, and they're already coming to us because they see us as superior. You know, they're coming to us because they know that we are dominant, and they're coming to us for the guidance in the first place.